As promised in 2024, we're diversifying our topics, and I want to talk about something that hit the headlines earlier this week that's really interesting. Hertz had made waves when they announced that they were going to be investing heavily in electric vehicles, but now they're selling 20,000 EVs to buy gas cars instead. We'll take a look at some of the details here, why they might be doing this, and some of the possible repercussions on the EV industry here in the US and for adoption of EVs in general. But if we haven't met before, my name's Frank Cho. I'm here to help you live a richer life. On this channel, we talk about cryptocurrency, personal finance, and investing. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, do it now. That way I can keep you informed of all the latest news and updates. Now, I'm going to take this from a CNN article, although it's hit lots of different websites because it was a big piece of news. And the reason is because places like Fox, that tend to be more right-leaning, are more harshly critical of EVs. And I want to take maybe less of that harsh criticism directly in the publication, and we'll sprinkle in some of the hows and whys for the appropriate criticism for the decisions that have been made and the impacts of what they've done here. So again, you can find this anywhere in the major media outlets. It was just announced earlier this week. So what's happening? Hertz made a big push into EVs in recent years, but they've decided now in 2024 it's time to cut back. The company plans to sell off a third of its EV fleet, roughly 20,000 vehicles, and then use that money to purchase more gas-powered vehicles. EVs have hurt Hertz's financials, executives said, because despite costing less to maintain, they have higher damage repair costs and higher depreciation. Another important consideration there is parts availability. Tesla, which makes up the majority of their fleet, has a reputation for being exceptionally slow at delivering spare and replacement parts. This because of Elon Musk's focus on churning out new vehicles for customers and customer acquisition versus servicing existing customers. This has been a problem and complaint of many Tesla owners. Collision and damage repairs on an EV can often run about twice that associated with a comparable combustion engine vehicle, said Hertz's CEO on a recent analyst call. And when you think about it, electric vehicles encompass a lot of technology in and of themselves, just in running the battery tech, but also they tend to have more advanced systems because the battery in and of itself is a 5-figure item. Batteries in a vehicle, an electric vehicle, can cost from $10,000 to $15,000 just for the battery itself, the battery modules. It requires a lot of purchasing power to buy an EV. And so because of that, they try and dress it up with higher tech gadgets and gizmos, LiDAR systems, advanced cruise control, and collision avoidance, and all these things that are expensive to replace because they're integrated into bumpers, as an example. They have lots of detectors and cameras and things that can be more expensive to replace. And when you think about this from the bigger picture, it certainly does impact rental fleets, because when you're renting cars, you're buying cars, keeping them for a fairly short period of time, and then reselling them into the market. So you're taking the depreciation when these cars are new and when they depreciate the fastest, and you're renting these out and you're trying to then resell them at the end of the useful life for you back to customers. But we'll see why this causes a problem for companies like Hertz. EV price declines in the new year have pushed down the value of those vehicles that they then want to resell, driven by actions by Tesla. People are generally willing to pay a certain amount less for a used car than a new one, but with Tesla lowering prices of a new car, that further drives down the price of a used car. Hertz expects to take, get this, close to $250 million loss due to depreciation due to the EVs, an average of about $12,250 per vehicle, according to their recent SEC filing. Now, while Hertz isn't pointing the finger directly at Tesla, they of course make up 80% of the EV fleet at Hertz and are to blame here. EVs are only about 11% of Hertz's total fleet, but they're certainly feeling the bite here. Tesla's aggressive aggressive price cutting hasn't just impacted the Tesla vehicles, but as competitors try and keep pace, other automakers have been cutting their own prices. When they reduce those prices, the used values go down, and hence the rapid depreciation and the hit that companies like Hertz are facing. Now, if you remember, these vehicles get back into the market as used vehicles, like I mentioned earlier. So Hertz, Enterprise, all these others, once they're done with them, they have to resell them. And this depreciation has such a huge factor on their business, and then deciding on what cars they want in their fleet, which ones are going to depreciate the most and have the biggest hit on them. Those are what they're going to try and avoid. Being a relatively new company, Tesla doesn't have the same kind of availability of replacement parts on hand and trained technicians to do the repairs. Tesla service centers are few and far between, and other companies like GM or Ford have after sales departments, divisions that handle specifically these types of things, repairs, service parts, and keeping those stocked at local locations where everyone's going to have access to them. The likes of GM and other automakers have decades of a broad supply network, but the parts that you need for Tesla that have to come directly from Tesla certainly aren't as readily available. And remember, too, more established automakers have parts availability through aftermarket providers that can produce parts and then sell them, and you can use them in your vehicle. They don't have to be the OEM or original equipment manufacturer parts like with Tesla. So besides costing more to repair when they're damaged in a crash, EVs also get into more crashes per Hertz's CEO. Again, Tesla's making up 80% of Hertz's EV fleet are mostly the problem in both areas. Our work with Tesla is to look at the performance of the car so as to lower the risk of instance of damage, he said. We're in very direct engagement with them on parts procurement and labor and the like. Hertz sells used vehicles at auctions as well as directly to customers on their own website. So what do you think here? When we look at EVs, certainly we've seen rapid growth, but also now as we move into 2024 and even there at the end of 2023, a slowing in the cadence and the trajectory of sales as adoption is sort of reaching a tipping point, and maybe growth won't come as easily as it has in the past. Infrastructure is still lagging, and we've seen concerns there. Companies like ChargePoint have announced cuts to their labor force as they seek to get towards profitability, but it's a chicken and egg type situation. When you don't have enough EVs on the road, you can't justify building the charging stations, but if you don't have the charging stations, people aren't going to buy the EVs, and round it goes. It's a really interesting and perhaps vicious circle. But let me know what you think. Do you want to hear more topics like this on the channel? Do you want to hear more about EVs? Certainly, having worked in the industry personally, I can talk in more detail about batteries themselves. We can talk about industry when it comes to OEMs, and we can talk about charging infrastructure as well. But let me know in the comments what you want to hear more of. I hope this was helpful and as an interesting change of pace, and we'll continue to test new things here on the channel in 2024 and see what's of interest to you. Drop a like if you found any value here. Thank you so much for spending some time here with me. I do truly appreciate it. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.